You are now listening to FNB Radio.
And welcome to F&B Radio. My name is Lindsay Collins, and I am your host. I teased it out on the last episode. I think I framed my guest today as the Jermaine Dupri of restaurant memes, because he writes the memes that the whole world reads. They're very, very hilarious. Eli Sussman is here. Welcome to the show, Eli. This is such an exciting thing for me.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's nice to talk to you. I haven't seen you in person in a while, but we go kind of way back in the food world. I met you in Charleston many years ago.
It's so true. I was thinking about that because I was like, sometimes you meet people I feel like the restaurant world, obviously everybody knows each other in some way, or at least knows someone that knows that person. So there's always a couple of degrees of separation between really you and anyone in the fucking industry. But when I met you guys, you and your brother, I was like, I just felt like these guys are going places. Not to be corny or lame, but I'm like, you guys had such great energy. You were so fun. I feel like we connected in a humor way, also in kind of where we had worked and what we were pursuing in the industry. You have a podcast. There was just so much simpatico with us. And I've been very fond of you ever since. And then, of course, cut to the Sussmans Instagram blowing up with restaurant memes. You guys have 47,000 followers or something insane. And not a day goes by that I don't look in my feed and see 10 people resharing whatever the most hilarious new post you've created is. So I'm so happy to have you back on the show after having met you and really been fond of you years ago, but also just to talk about all things humor and restaurant, because I think wit and restaurants are so inexplicably linked and people don't really understand why. But if you think about people in a restaurant industry, it's you don't have tons of time to hang out by the water cooler and drag out these boring stories. You have seconds to communicate a joke or a bit or something that emerges. There's some sort of vernacular that occurs in your specific kitchen or restaurant or wait station. And I think you and I both really, really relish in that element of food. And it makes people quick, and you have to be kind of mentally dexterous to work in restaurants, whether it's in the front or the back, but you also have to be quick and have mental agility. So it makes them very, very funny people, whether they're comedians or not.
Yeah, I think everyone has these brilliant, off the wall, sometimes disgusting, sometimes horrible stories that they share. And everyone in every job has, one or two anecdotes. Oh my God, you'll never guess what happened at work. But people that work in restaurants have thousands of them because it's an insane, high pressure work environment. And it's usually hot, dangerous, dirty, and someone is, doing something probably wrong or illegal. So the stories, they stack up, and they often stack up with sort of reckless abandon. So it's been cool on the Instagram to be sort of a portal, a gateway, a sounding board, a reflection of the industry. I'm not always making these memes solely from my perspective as a chef. I like to do them from each position within the restaurant, and I like to give everyone a little bit of shine and showcase both the positive and the negative of every single role in the restaurant. There's good and bad owners, chefs, line cooks, front of house, waiters, bartenders, but everyone deserves to be made fun of, and everyone deserves to be propped up and been given the cred that they deserve for contributing to the restaurant. And that's really what I try to do day to day, is so that whatever you do in the hospitality industry, there's a little nugget in the memes, either in the posts or in the stories. I want there to be something there for you that you can share or that you can identify with and be like, oh my God, that's me. Or, oh my God, that's my boss, or that's my coworker. So yeah, I try to, it's sort of like a wide spray of who gets caught in the web of the memes on a daily basis.
You do it so well. And I think the meme is the perfect vehicle for kind of explaining it to the public, though I still feel like they're very much for people in the industry. People outside of the industry enjoy them. But it's usually people within the industry that are sharing them and getting these extreme belly laughs from them, or at least me. I can scroll through any single one of them right now, and there's just so much truth in them, but it's distilled down into this very stripped down joke that's visual and quick, which I also think is brilliant, because when you're in the restaurant industry, you have like 5 seconds to look at your phone, or like while you're
Totally.
in the bathroom or whatever you're doing. Like, you don't have this long drawn out time to like listen to a podcast with other restaurateurs or something like that.
Yeah, I want to be able to tell the stories of your day and your shift really quickly, because what I'm trying to convey, I mean, what all memes are trying to convey is actually a fairly complex thought or event, and you have to distill it down into, usually a couple words. Maybe I'll get, a couple sentences. Every once in a while, I'll on purpose make one like obscenely long. And I'm trying to accomplish something with that, not to get into like the minutia of the creation of each meme. But I think that really it's like you want a snapshot of what that story is trying to tell. And yeah, it's a pretty niche account, so it is for hospitality workers. But I also sometimes will make one that's just about something as obvious as tipping or
Right.
ordering wine at a restaurant. There's a lot of like surface level memes that I make that, like, if you like food or you eat out a lot or you've ever worked in a restaurant, even for a week in high school, you'll get it. And then there's ones that are super, super drilled in, which are, very detailed, that only maybe if you've owned your own restaurant, you're really going to think it's funny. But like, that's what I try to do. I want it to be a little bit for everyone, but also I'm trying to actually really connect with like specific people in their roles so that they feel heard. And when I started making them at the beginning of COVID, it was because my restaurant was closed, just like basically everybody else's. I was incredibly frustrated by the process. I'm not someone who likes to sit on their hands and move very slowly and wait for someone to tell me what's going to happen. And being a restaurant owner, you're in control pretty much of your own destiny. And I very much was not in control of my own destiny around March of 2020. And it just gave me an opportunity to vent. And it started off as a mechanism to blow off steam about New York City and regulations and de Blasio. And then, of course, the federal government and their kind of inability to assess the situation quickly and truly bail out the restaurant industry, for lack of a better term. I mean, the auto industry and the bank industry, they got their money right away, and they're too big to fail. Well, what about the 15 million people that work in hospitality that, either died or watched their businesses die or sat at home in fear and were not taken care of? So people were mad. I was mad and frustrated, and this just gave me an avenue to just say something out loud. And I didn't really think that much about who would listen or if it would appeal to that many people. I didn't have nearly as many followers at that point, and I mostly was posting food pictures of the restaurant and sometimes, funny small selfie videos of me talking about what I did at work. But it didn't really develop into the full-blown meme thing until maybe 3 or 4 months into COVID.
Wow. And so when you were making them, it was just kind of this thing that just kept growing and people started to share them. What was the first time that you were surprised by, like, oh my God, this like made it this far? Because you guys, what I think you do that is so funny is nothing is kind of off limits. And that takes a lot of guts. Like, I think in the industry, there's a lot of behind the scenes talk like that. And like, there's just so many things that I'm like, I would never even say out loud. Cause I'm like, it's just sort of insider baseball that people talk about, or, the way that you perceive the 50 best or the things
Yeah.
like that. But everyone's like, yeah, we like make fun of them and Eater, and everybody's like, these lists are garbage and they don't matter. And then at the same time, we like have this duality where people in the industry do care about that in a way. And so I think you balance that duality really well of being honest and also satirical about what's happening. And so it's kind of undeniable. Like, people feel safe in the fact that it's not just attacking one part of the industry or one person in the industry. It's like you said, it's a wide spray.
Yeah. Well, I think what made it easy for me is that I am very much on the inside, but I also consider myself a little bit to a certain extent on the outside. So let's break that down a little bit. Like, first off, I come from like an extreme position of privilege, and I'm fully aware of like the irony of me, talking shit about an industry that I have benefited a lot from. I'm a white male chef. I come from a family that was, financially stable and allowed me to make the decision to quit a desk job and go work as a line cook and do something financially risky, because my parents, if I fell flat on my face, I could have moved home with my parents and they would have welcomed me with open arms and bought my groceries and said, get back on your feet, right? So I know that there's like thousands of people out there that work in the industry that do not have that opportunity. So first off, I approach this from the position of like, I'm going to throw dirt at people, but I'm aware that also, some of this is self-referential to my sort of privilege. And also I was that guy who bought fancy Japanese knives. I've been nominated for a James Beard Award. I was a winner of a Zagat New York Award. I've written some cookbooks. I have worked at very good restaurants that have been, acclaimed, as has my brother. But also at the same time, we don't take cooking super seriously. And I do think that a lot of the industry is so self-obsessed with their desire for accolades and their need to kind of stand in a circle and congratulate each other, that the entire absurdity of it all was really weighing down on me. So even though I am on the inside and I am in a position of power, I'm the owner of a restaurant, like I should be held accountable. So part of these memes is like holding myself accountable, and also my peers and not my peers, people that are much more successful than me, like maybe I can be that voice of reason where people that don't have my privilege are like, well, fuck, I could never say that because for whatever reason. And I'm like, you know what? I'll say it. I will put it out there, and hopefully you feel like I have alleviated a little bit of your anxiety by me saying something that you didn't feel comfortable saying. So I'm trying to do some lifting for other people that might not feel comfortable in the space to say what they feel. But I also know that people are going to come at me for certain things that I say, whether they might feel personally attacked or whether they might say to me, like, you're part of the problem.
Right. Do you get like clapbacks in the DMs of people being like, this is hypocritical, or like, because
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, look, I am a business owner that comes up short all the time, right? I do not offer my entire staff a 401k and healthcare. And like, that's embarrassing for me. I wish I could. I wish I did a lot of things better in my business. So a lot of what I'm projecting out in the memes is like, I have an aspirational desire to do a better job myself. I am not in any way saying that I'm perfect, but I do think there's a lot of people out there that do a really fucking bad job, both as a worker, as an employee, and as an employer. I think lots and lots of people can do a better job, and tons of people deserve to be treated better. But yeah, people come into my DMs and say, I think you missed the mark on this one. Or, I disagree with your representation of, the Michelin community. I get a lot of those where people are like, you've never worked at a Michelin restaurant. You don't really understand XYZ. Okay, fine. Like, everyone is entitled to your opinion. I love to have those dialogues with people. I've many times posted on the stories, hey, if you want to DM me and have a conversation with me, I am so game. I would love to hear your position. I would love to gain more insight and information into your lives, because worst case scenario, I'm going to get great material. And best case scenario, I'm going to learn something new about your life, your experience, and maybe I am wrong, and I'm willing to accept that. The only thing that I'm not willing to accept was the anti-vaxxers, which happened a lot during the beginning of COVID. That I just completely shut down. I don't even engage with them. I have no interest in having that style of argument. And someone who just like blatantly wants to talk shit about a specific person with like no evidence whatsoever. Like, I'm not I'm not a rumors account. I'm not trying to like dox people and make their lives horrible. What I am willing to do is like, there's a couple key guys at the top that I obviously, I use them a lot as content fodder. Like I'm going to talk about Daniel Hum, Dan Barber, Renee Redzepi. Like these are guys that they're so famous and they have been at the top for so long that I think that first off, like they're untouchable, either unfortunately or however you want to define that, as like a meme is not going to hurt these people. And I don't consider it like slander. Like this is like a celebrity that I can make a joke about in the same way that a comedian can make a joke about someone who is a public figure. What I'm not interested in doing is like getting some weird piece of information about someone you worked for and then like blasting it out there so that you can get that like off your chest. That's not really how the Instagram functions.
No, and I don't think it should. And I think that's the best part about it is like when I look at the Instagram, it's more just like about seeing yourself in that world, and that's the whole thing that makes people laugh, is because it's funny because it's true to a certain extent, and on some level, someone is going to be like, "Oh, that's absolutely happened to me." These are universal sort of truths, no matter if you worked in Michelin star or not. But I think what's so fun about the whole account is that it is a joke and it is satire. And in some ways, satire is always been there to point out like the criticisms of what you're saying, but also being in appreciation and in support of the industry itself. Because I'm like, somehow it just seems to build community because it's something that it's sort of, for me, it started in COVID and I'm like, I wasn't working in restaurants anymore, but kind of scratches that itch for those little bits that we have. I call them bits, but it's just like whatever the dumb thing that like is the toy that we play with all night where you're walking through the service station or every time you come in the dish pit, it's like distilled down to a single word or a dumb thing. Like there used to be this guy that would just fuck up all the time and we would be like, let's get him another James Beard award. And that was like, just the joke. Like it would be, we'd play with it for a week or two and then put it down. And it's like, that kind of happens universally. So it felt like community and it felt like a break from just like the seriousness of the heaviness of everything that was happening, but also still like not just putting our head in the sand and being like, blah, blah, blah. Like, let's all laugh it off. Is like, let's look at it. Let's examine what's happening. And we can also make fun of it and kind of like help ourselves feel better.
It was never my intention for the Instagram to be like this community sounding board. I really just started making memes and I thought hopefully someone will look at them and people will think they're funny. But what it has grown into over time as a place that people can share these memes with each other and feel really connected across different states and different restaurants. And as I've seen that people find them to be applicable across all styles of restaurant, price points, and geography, what it's helped me realize, and I think a lot of other people realize as well, is that we are a singular industry and we are connected, and that whatever you're feeling, there's thousands of other people feeling it as well, negative or positive. And I think that has been reassuring during COVID for people to see myself and Ivy, who runs Alay Celine. She's my favorite other account in this realm. And like her and I think people come to look at these memes and like feel good about their day. They kick off their morning with my stories and they're like, oh, wow, I'm going to send this to my friend who I maybe haven't spoken to in 2 years since we worked at the restaurant together. And this is going to rekindle a conversation about, oh my God, can you remember when that horrible porter or that sous chef did that stupid thing?
Exactly.
Let me reconnect with this person. And I've seen it in the comments of a post where people are like, oh my God, this is you. And then the person responds back like, dude, how are you? I haven't spoken to you in 5 years.
God,
like people are definitely identifying with these memes strongly as like their personal identity as they define themselves through the restaurant. That's so fucking cool. I like cannot believe that that's a byproduct of this happening. And as more and more people have followed, the feedback that I've gotten is like, don't stop making these because you're saying what we want people to hear about our industry. And people are sending them to their parents and they say, you didn't get my job, look through these. This is what my job is like on a day to day. So, and a lot of people are sharing them with their significant other that is outside of the industry.
100%.
As like a peek behind the curtain. They're like, you really don't get what happens when I leave the apartment for 12 hours every single day. So it's like the Sussman's meme post today is like what my Tuesday looks like. That is so unbelievably rewarding for me. I mean, look, I'm a chef. I have a big ego. I want people to like me. I want people to like my restaurant. Don't get me wrong. It's very flattering that people like the page, but the fact that people utilize it like for their personal usage is so unbelievably cool. So satisfying for me.
It's amazing. And I think that like I was going to try to get through the whole episode without bringing up the show The Bear, but on my last episode I talked about this because when that show came out, a bunch of people from my past, it was like sending up a bat signal or something. It did a very similar thing where it's like you all of a sudden have these really visceral like memories that come back, and these people also would just like out of nowhere started like reappearing either in a DM or just being like, how have you been? Like something about that collective shared experience and seeing it reflected back at you brings you closer to them again. Because I don't know about if I'm the only one who does this or if I'm like a psychopath who burns bridges, but I'm like, when I leave a restaurant, usually I kind of just leave those people. Like I'll still know them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But restaurant work is so very much like what's in front of my face right now that once you move on to another restaurant, it's not like you just black out and forget them, but they aren't in your everyday peripheral anymore. They're just kind of around. But it's like these kind of experiences are seeing the memes and connecting and having a specific memory. And these are kind of some of the best times, even if they're like wacky or gross or stupid or funny or exhausting or frustrating. They're part of the fabric of like what your day is. And somehow that's so rewarding to like see that's represented in other people, and that you can kind of like look at each other and be like, dude, I remember this. And it makes you feel validated. It makes you feel not crazy, which is a lot of the time I'm spent in restaurants. I've been like, am I the only fucking one who feels like this? Like this is a common kind of feeling for people in the industry, but it's amazing how it kind of brings it back around. But what are the things that you are like, this is too real? Has there ever been one that you've created that you like, you don't have to say what they are, but like that you just were like, nah, too far? Or like,
oh yeah. I mean, that happens all the time. If I think I have a pretty good gut on what I can post and what I shouldn't, but my brother, I make the memes. But Max is like a perfect sounding board. He has great dry wit. He will tell me straight up if I've gone too far. So there have been several that before I post it, I text it to him and he goes, nah, don't do it.
That's funny.
And so that is a great, he's my business partner. He's my brother. We get along well personally and professionally. It's great to always be able to run whatever you're thinking by another person. And if you're going to send it out to 40-some thousand people, you should probably, if you have a second of pause about it, you might as well, have one other person take a peek at it. And, I've been accused of like being mean. People have been like, oh, that's really mean. I can't believe that like you went after, Dan Barber, like he's an institution and a lot of people work for him and all those kind of things. But honestly, all I did was just take pull quotes from an Eater article and basically overlay them over some photos. I didn't really say anything that hadn't already been said. So, I don't think I'm really, unless it's like so fucking out there that that I'm clearly making it up. Yeah. I don't want to get into a realm where people look at something and they're confused about whether it's satire or whether it's real. That seems dangerous to me. Like, I don't want to be making like, a slanderous piece of comedic material. I want people to be like, holy shit, that's so fucking wild. That's hilarious and so funny. I don't want people to be questioning whether or not it is factual. So that has definitely happened before. And I've, reposted it with like a little note at the bottom that's like, says, this is a fake article. And that has happened also when I make fake infatuation or Eater articles. Sometimes that gets me into a little bit of trouble where somebody will be like, oh my God, I cannot believe that Eater ran this article. That's so offensive. And I will have to send them a message back and say, just so you know, this is fake. I made it. Eater did not actually run this article. It happened pretty recently when I made one I did one on Pride, which was like, it was the 15 top Michelin star restaurants where if you say, you get a discount for Pride Month. And it was,
Yeah.
it was basically, it was offensive, and it was meant to be offensive. And people thought that Eater actually ran that article. So,
Oh, shit, yeah.
so yeah, I mean, sometimes I get myself into a little bit of hot water, but I try to stay above the fray a little bit by not putting out anything that's totally inflammatory and outrageous, I guess.
It's so you do a good job of it, I think, because I'm like, people also have to stop believing everything they read on the internet. Like when I
Yeah.
come across an Onion article, I'm not like, for real? It's like clear to me that it's satire. Or if it's not, you can do some digging and find out.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? It just happened. This is the example that I should have given, which is I said that Danny Meyer did actually leave Union Square Hospitality Group as the CEO. He stayed on as whatever, the emeritus in charge, but he is stepped down as the CEO. And I made a joke that he had joined the board of Martin's Potato Rolls, because obviously there's been a huge controversy with Shake Shack buying Martin's Potato Rolls and Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania being just like a generally awful, hateful, terrible human being, right?
Yes.
And so, that's the joke that I'm trying to make, is that Danny Meyer has retired and he's joined up with this thing that Shake Shack won't denounce. I thought it was pretty clear. I thought it was funny. A lot of people thought that he had actually joined Martin's Potato Rolls. And so, yeah, like, I guess there is always the chance that people will either forget that it's a joke, misinterpret it, but I don't know.
That's slice of chorizo and think it's another planet.
Yeah.
It happens all the time where you're like, everybody, let's just take a second. It's an account to make you laugh. Like
totally. Exactly.
You have to take risks in comedy. But I think that one of the terms that you use is tweezer head, which I think is so funny. It's just like a reference to someone who plates only with tweezers, which is very characteristic of Michelin star restaurants. But you have to really be in that world to understand those, to even make those jokes. So that's what I like about you. And I'm not exactly sure how old you are, but I feel like we're similar. I'm 36, and I'm kind of in that realm that, like, as of all millennials, kind of got fucked, where it's like you started out in a place that was one way and like things have changed a lot. So part of the shift, like I call my old part of like my first part of my career in the early 2000s, like it was a totally different landscape. And then now where it is, as I'm not in it anymore, I'm still trying to figure out, like, I have sort of like been so destabilized by the fact that I'm like, were my experiences terrible? Do I like these people or do I not like these people? Do these people still have my respect or can I separate it? Like, there's been so much change. And so that's another reason I find it very therapeutic, because I'm like, it's just a way to laugh about it and not necessarily be like, is it bad? Is it good? Am I bad because I worked there? Because I did work in Michelin star restaurants, and like I like met and worked at Noma and like hung out with Rene Redzepi. And then I see him online like being like reindeer penis. And I'm like, you can't tell me this isn't funny. This guy knows he's being funny. Like, we can all just take a second and laugh about the ridiculousness that it is, and like kind of have these throwbacks to the way things used to be, because I think things are changing, but some things are universally the same, like chefs eating a disgusting family meal and farting under the fan. Like, this is just something that's always going to happen no matter how professional shit gets. So I love that you kind of anchor that world. Like, it's very it's nostalgic for me, but it also feels very modern, and like bringing the industry and like saying, hey, let's take a look at this. Like, why are customers, or as you guys call them, custies, why are they so fucking entitled? And it helps, I think, people navigate how they're feeling about what's happening, which isn't always easy to do.
Yeah, everyone's entitled to change. I don't think any of us want to talk about who we were when we were 17 or even 27. And, I'm coming up on 38. And yeah, there's stages of your life when you're obsessed with something and you can look back on it and it's pretty cringy. It could be what you were into, your fashion, your, political choices. Like almost everyone is entitled. Almost everyone is entitled to a second chance. There are a few people who are not, but really the vast majority of people, it's like, I want to hear about what you are doing now and what you're doing now in a positive sense. And, to frame that in reference to what we're talking about, it's like, if you are so diehard obsessed with the type of cuisine that you cook, but you're doing it in a responsible way and you're not an asshole, like, Sure, use tweezers all the time. What I'm trying to say is that the vast majority of people that define themselves through that type of cuisine are insufferable. And they are that way because of a certain type of hierarchical, archetypal chef that they idolize. And that bums me out. And that person shouldn't be held on a pedestal anymore. We've moved past that. And if that's who you idolized in 2005, and you're willing to talk about it openly, like, yeah, I really used to bow down at the altar of, Marco Pierre White, but now I've, parsed out those little pieces of why I was obsessed with that, and I've moved on in a culinary different direction. Cool. That's awesome. But like, if you still want to be a abuser physically and verbally in the kitchen, like, no, your time is over. Plates are no longer thrown, and we shouldn't be standing for people that are gonna, throw your mise en place in the trash to teach you a lesson. Like, we're past all of that. So yeah, like, tweezer heads, I'm not coming after every single person that uses tweezers. Like, I've used tweezers before. It's happened,
Wow, you heard it here first.
And so what I'm trying to say is, like, there are really shitty custies, but not every single person is a custy ass custy, like, a lot of them are wonderful and tip 22 or 25% and really treat everyone with a lot of respect when they enter into the restaurant, and they revere the workers in the restaurant. I'm just basically asking, like, can everyone just do a little bit better? Like,
can people just grow up?
Yeah, like, we're making it,
grow up.
we're trying to still navigate COVID. Can everyone just, like, be a little bit nicer? And can you just chill out a little bit with how obsessed you are with all the old, ways of doing things? Because we can change and evolve and just generally move past all those bad ingrained techniques and thought processes that have anchored the restaurant industry for so long that people like you and me, when we have these conversations, we're like, oh my God, how did I work there? Why did I do that? Why did I suffer through that? It's like, well, we shouldn't anymore. Let's figure out creative ways to move past that and have it be a more equitable, inclusive, fair type of industry. And hopefully the people at the top will do that as well, because they're the ones that hold all the power in order to do so.
It's really fascinating because I think what you're saying is so true. And even myself, like, I'm from the South, and then I was up in New York, and I, like, kind of accidentally got that job, but I worked at Per Se, and I worked at the French Laundry, and I worked at Noma, and I did all this stuff. And then I came back to Charleston, and there isn't even the Michelin Guide here. And I was like, I had to sort of unlearn my own snobbery, like, that I had internalized about, like, the way kitchens should run. Like, I had sort of, and I think I know a lot of people, like my former coworkers, when they left spaces like that, could almost not work other places, not because they were too good, but I remember being rejected for a job interview at McCrady's because they said they didn't want to hire someone with my background because they were insufferable, hard to teach, thought they were better. Like, one of the first jobs that I had here in Charleston was an amazing restaurant called Fig. And I worked there for a long time. And it was sort of the place that I went to heal and kind of undo all of that, where I was like, oh, your toilets don't flush automatically? Like, what a dump. Like, I hate it here. Like, just even if I wasn't actively thinking that, like, the unrealistic world that people are in, in those settings, it makes it very difficult for you to integrate into other. And there's always sort of this undoing and unlearning. And then I finally feel like now, in this time in my life, I'm able to cook and be proud of what I'm cooking. But at that time, I have like cringy experiences where I'd be like, someone would be like, oh, you work at Per Se, you want to cook dinner for us? And it would be like me trying way too fucking hard, like, just failing at something, like, not knowing what I was doing, and realizing outside of that world, like, I didn't actually know that much. You know what I mean? I wasn't as great as and neither were any of the other people there. It was like they were kind of just playing a part in this role. But if you take them out of that and say, all right, show me what you can do, it's not a lot sometimes.
Yeah. There's like this intense irony in our industry, which is like the highest temples of gastronomy, these $300 a person gastronomical experiences, are actually built by and for people that are like hedge funders. So, and everyone that works at these places and all of the industry people, after they like unlearn that Michelin lifestyle, what do? They all open a sandwich shop, or like they serve like one street food dish like that their grandma made. So it's like you spend all this time being in this environment, and then after a while you get burned out and you're like, you know what I want to do? I just want to cook food for my friends and for people that would love food. And then so you basically, what do? Like you do what you should have done from the beginning, which is you make really good food for people that enjoy food, and then do it at a realistic price point. So it's like, again, I don't want to just hate on like only Michelin restaurants.
No.
But like the truth is that like at the end of the day, so many of these people, they like move back to their hometown or like, you know, a smaller city somewhere in their country, and they just end up putting out like pretty simple plates of food with a nice glass of wine. And honestly, that's how most people want to eat anyway. So we give all this reverence to the top, and more you're seeing like a lot of appreciation for, you know, the other end of the price point spectrum. But I would love the focus shifted so that like the people that we revere the most are actually the people that are doing things like really on a scrappy budget and are doing things exceptionally well, like out of a small kitchen with one or two people. Like, to me, that's incredible. Working with 100 interns and a $10 million budget, like, actually is not incredible to me. I feel like if you gave most people with a certain amount of culinary ingenuity, if you gave them those pieces,
resources,
if they had those resources, they would excel at an extremely high level as well. So
yeah, when I got out of those places, I realized how I had to basically still learn how to cook and like figure out who I was, because I had very much figured out who they were and like aligned myself with that.
Yeah.
And never really did it successfully because I didn't go to like culinary school or anything. Everybody there was kind of like, what the fuck are you doing here? So I was always sort of the outsider in the in place. But once I got out, it was like, man, like truly one of my favorite things to do now is just make eggs. Like I don't crave the truffle custard from the French Laundry with a chive chip. Like I never crave that. I'm like, oh, you know what would hit the fucking spot? Like
an 80-step process that takes 4 days.
Yeah, like that's never what I want. But at the same time, no, I want to make it clear too, because I'm like, I'm not hating. Like I still very much like felt personally attacked when Pete Wells gave that terrible review. I was like, those are my people. That fucking that hurts.
Sure. And the truth is, there's a lot of people there and they're awesome and they work so hard and they're immensely talented. Like there are these incredible people who do the work.
Sure.
And they're all trying, like they all have dreams and they're trying to achieve something as well. And so, you know, like I also want to just be fully transparent. And I say this online and in the memes and stuff like that. Like there are certain things that I can't do and that I don't know how to do as a chef. And so it's like, you know, sometimes I approach these memes from the position of like imposter syndrome, you know, like every person who works in a restaurant always knows that there's somebody better out there as well, better resume, you know, better skill set, is going to achieve more. So it's like, you know, up and down the ladder, you look to the left and the right, always looking around you. It's like, I'm not saying that I'm immune to those feelings of like being in the rat race as well. You know, like I feel that pressure, even though I make these memes, like I'm not some nonchalant guy who just throws like, I don't give a fuck to the wind, you know, like I'm a small business owner. I would love to be, you know, as successful as many, many people that I look up to and that I consider, you know, ahead of me, you know?
Yeah, no, it's so tough. But I think I want to talk about your restaurant. We haven't even actually talked about it. tell me kind of what was the impetus for starting it and how, because
Sure.
you like definitely, and they're markers that I feel like were like, the traditional trajectory where you were 30 under 30, you were James Beard nominated, like you were kind of checking all the boxes there
Yeah,
for.
definitely. So my brother and I, my brother was the chef of Roberta's, and when he ran that restaurant, it was probably the most popular restaurant in the United States, and they got reviewed when my brother was the CDC there, so they got a glowing review, and I was at this place called Mile End Deli, which was really, it was embedded and you could say part of at the forefront of the artisanal Brooklyn craziness. So we were making everything from scratch, pickling, making all of our smoked meats, hot dogs, baking, and it was an insanely wonderful place to be. So we were both surrounded by crazy talented people, and the energy was amazing. Like two popular restaurants in Brooklyn, how fantastic that we ended up at the right place at the right time. And I also want to emphasize that neither of those places got those accolades because me or my brother, really. Like we were part of that, but like they were already super popular when we arrived at those respective places. I think we both did a good job of elevating them even further. But like, Mile End was slammed before I became a prep cook there. I didn't turn that place into what it was. But what it did allow us to do is use it as this launching pad where we were like most definitely going to be able to do something next that gave us the ability to have some say in what we were going to do next. So what we decided to do was launch a concept that was going to be around shawarma. And why shawarma? Well, we grew up in Metro Detroit. There's a huge population from the Middle East there. There's a large Iraq and Iran, and there's Syrians, there's people from Israel, there's some Palestinians in Metro Detroit, and there's a huge Chaldean population, which is Christian Arabs. And so like hummus is everywhere, every single restaurant basically like has some Middle Eastern-y something on the menu, even if it's not like you go to diners in Detroit and like they all have, hummus on the menu, and they all have various Mediterranean flavors. And a lot of the diners in Detroit are owned by Greek people. So chicken over rice is sort of this ubiquitous dish that almost every culture has a version of. And it's a staple of family meal, of course. It's a very comforting food. And when my brother and I were looking at something that we just kept going back to and saying, what do we want to eat every day for the next 5 years of our lives? What would we like to cook every single day? What do we think that we can execute extremely well? We just kept coming back to this idea of shawarma. And being in New York, there's halal trucks on every corner, and every bodega serves some version of chicken over rice, and they're often owned by Muslims. And so there's a halal chicken over rice like in every neighborhood, if not on every block. So Max and I thought, can we do something in this space that will be like respectful to the fact that like we grew up eating this, but we're not from the Middle East. Like, how do we do something that is not like just a chefed up version of chicken shawarma, So we thought long and hard about whether we wanted to go fast casual or whether we wanted to do a 50-seat sit down restaurant with wine. And more we thought about it from the business perspective of what do we really want this to become? And we wanted it to be a multi-unit business. And in order to do that, fast casual just seemed like the right way to go. So it would have been the logical choice to do we left our restaurant jobs in about 2015, and it would have been really logical to just do a small plates restaurant that was a new American with a funky wine list. I am confident we would have been successful if we did that, but neither one of us really wanted that at that time. So we decided to do something super, super casual with no emphasis on alcohol and really just an emphasis on sandwiches. We kind of like jumped over the middle stage of a lot of careers, which is like you go somewhere super, super fancy and build up your high-end repertoire. Max felt like he had that under his belt from doing these dinners with Carlo, which basically turned into Blanca. So Max
Wow.
was like, I've been doing this high end plated stuff like for years out of the back kitchen at Roberta's. And like, I don't think this is the way that I want to cook. And I was kind of a more low end like deli guy. And I said, like, I just want to sling sandwiches. Like, I want to see people's visceral reaction to like sinking their teeth into just a good plate of food. So Samisa was born as a pop-up in 2015, and we got our brick and mortar in 2016.
Congrats, dude. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do. I mean, it's so hard to do anywhere, but it's really fucking hard to do in New York City.
Yeah, I mean, it was so much harder. It was impossible for us to fundraise, which was like a real big kind of kick in the teeth, because we thought that we had a great kind of public persona that would have helped us achieve a level of investment that we did not obtain. And that was demoralizing because, you know, we had gotten good press about our restaurants and ourselves, and we were like coming hot off the heels of having written some cookbooks with William Sonoma. And I'm not going to lie, like, I thought I was hot shit and that someone was going to write me a big check. And we had dozens and dozens of conversations with people. And, you know, it is so hard to turn the corner from, wow, this is a great idea, to physically getting the money in your hands.
Oh my
and
God,
certain people need certain reassurances. And so you end up having what starts off as a very similar conversation that then splinters into 1,000 different conversations with a potential investor. So we got very, very good at having those conversations. And, you know, we didn't close lots of conversations, which is really hard at the end of the day when you're like, oh, fuck, like, how am I going to get this money? And so, you know, we did get some money from friends and some family, and we struggled really hard in those first couple years to be open. Like, we definitely thought we knew a lot more than we did. We thought we were going to go open like a rocket ship. And what you realize very quickly about fast casual is that without selling alcohol, you need to do insane volume.
Food sales, yeah.
Yeah. And we were not in the best location for foot traffic. And we learned very quickly that, like, while we were pretty good at running other people's kitchens, running your own business full time while also being the creative culinary talent that leads the kitchen is a really challenging mental and physical job. And we didn't even realize that we were going to have to work, you know, even more at our own restaurant. So, you know, you ask people a million questions before you open, and then things go wrong in 100 ways that you never anticipated. So, huge learning curve to be, you know, 30 years old and running my own business in New York City, and not being prepared for all the various trials and tribulations of permitting, legalities, customer relations, insurance, all these things that truthfully I never ever dealt with when I was the chef of a restaurant.
This is the thing that I talk about all the time, because I had a really similar experience. When I left New York, I had gotten the resume, I had done all this stuff. Was working in the community here, and like I had the lay of the land in Charleston. I had a concept. I approached the investors because I all knew them from being in this great place that I was associated with, where I was, you know, successful and people knew me. And I gave my pitch, and it was so well thought out. And it's something that this market still very much needs, that hasn't been opened, by the way. And I pitched them the concept, and this old man looks across at me and he goes, I just wish Mike Lotta would open an X restaurant. And that was the guy that I worked for. And I was like, cool. So you realize how invisible you are, even though you think that you are highly visible and you think that you have all these assets that it takes. And that's what I mean. It was like a real like punch in the face for me to be like, wait, none of this amounts to anything. All I really should do is like get my shit together and like figure out what it is that I want to cook. And then you're going to have to learn your lessons either way, because no one went over P&L sheets with me. No one went over, like you're saying, permitting. There is no continued education within restaurants that prepares these people with these cool resumes, even if they were the change makers. They were the ones that were making it rain in whatever place that was already successful. Like Robert, I lived between Montrose and Morgan, at Gibbon Street. So like, I remember like there was no more visible restaurant than that. And then
and you know, some places are just lightning in a bottle, and they can't be related, and they are able to transcend all the potential problems that other restaurants face. And other places, like, they can be slammed with people and still be
Not
not
making money.
unsuccessful and not making money. And so what you find out very quickly when you have to look at the bottom line every single day is that then you start to like have to make concessions in regards to what your dreams are in relation to your business and the product and everything like that. And the specific example that I can give is like we started baking our pitas from scratch in house, which is incredibly it's totally inefficient from a cost perspective. And also from a quality perspective, it's so challenging to manage that product because you have to bake them every day, keep them fresh. They have to be continually made during service. And in order to justify that, you have to be basically either on like a hub and spoke model with several locations, or you just have to be doing insane volume. But we had 2 full-time bakers on our staff, but we were really just like a normal restaurant, and we served sandwiches that were wraps for $12. So I wish I would have found that out beforehand. But then once we started doing it and we bought the pita oven, we were already into it. It was part of the story of our restaurant that we baked them from scratch. And so, those are the type of things that, maybe if you work at places for 5 more years than I did, you would realize. Or maybe if you had a different mentor, they would have let you know. But honestly, you would have just made a different mistake down the line, even if you cleared that one up. So like from day one of trying to get investors to now, with COVID, let's just call it, I'm in year 6 or 7 maybe of owning a business. Like the amount of absurd wackiness that I've seen and that we've endured as small business owners is totally preposterous when you look at it through the lens of COVID. But even removing it from that, it's like it really is a never-ending process. And like as much as I, make fun of everyone all day on the Instagram, it's like this is such a challenging business. And so I do identify strongly with owners that are struggling. And I identify strongly with line cooks that are struggling because I've been that as well. It's like almost no one's really getting a fair shake in this scenario. And there are very few, there are very few Robertas and Carbones of the world that are able to kind of transcend the, day-to-day challenges of just keeping the lights on.
Absolutely. No, 1 + 1, it's just not transferable. Like it just doesn't, even if you had a mentor, even if you came on from the beginning, day one and saw what the struggles are, like it just doesn't translate when you're opening your own thing. And I would never open my own thing actually after like seeing, just trying to get investors. I was like, I don't think, I think I just was like kind of taught that was the progression for me. Like you kind of assume
100%.
that is the progression for you because you're like with the pita oven, you're like, I'm so far down this road. Like, this is what I do now. I don't know what else to do. I guess I have to open a place. But what I love about COVID and what I love about the meme account and all this stuff, because I'm like, people were forced to like look outside of that world and sort of be like, that world's all fucked up now. So you can just kind of do whatever you want. Not necessarily in business and opening restaurants, but I mean, like people are examining their talents, what they have, what are their actual assets that they hold.
Yeah.
What is the intellectual property that they have? And I think that's why you're so perfect at writing the memes and I think you should get into some sort of like comedy writing or something, because you're so good at it. And I think that you nail it perfectly. You and I kind of chatted behind the scenes and I'm like, what would you be doing if you could just wave a wand tomorrow and you're like, I don't have to go back to the restaurant, or I don't have to work in the industry at all anymore, or I don't want to work in the industry at all? Like, what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, my dream job, if I wasn't doing my restaurant, would probably be writing for a TV show. I love the flow of a 30-minute comedy. And I lived in LA for a while before I started cooking, and I actually worked in advertising and I wrote copy. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I'm late to the industry because when I graduated college, I worked at an agency that basically represented the record labels, and we did marketing and advertising for all the major record labels before that industry kind of went in the toilet. And then when I saw the writing was on the wall and that I probably wasn't going to have a job adjacent to the music industry, marketing albums that had zero budget, I started cooking on the weekends in Los Angeles and trying out trying that industry on and seeing if that fit. And then I moved to New York. So I loved being in a creative room with other people conceptualizing ideas. I think there's some of that transfers to the way that I've approached business with like a lighthearted comedic attitude in spite of also taking it seriously and trying to make it successful. And so, yeah, if I was to kind of revert back to a more traditional, let's say, out of the restaurant career, I'd love to do something involving writing. That, I think that suits my skill set, but also I hated sitting at a desk, and I love the day-to-day uncertainty of like, oh my God, today I need to go to the light store and talk to a plumber, and someone called out and the order was short. Like I feed off that psychotic energy. I am like a shark that needs to keep swimming or else I'll die, which to my detriment means that I continually am thinking about opening up another restaurant. So I'll probably never, ever fully get out of this because like COVID happened and I was like, oh, rents are low. Like I should definitely open another location. Got to strike while the iron is hot. And I see other people, either closing or striking while the iron is hot. And I'm like, all right, it's going to be one of those two. Like I'm going out in a blaze of fury and fire. So like, there is part of me that is always trying to like level up to a certain extent in the restaurant industry. Like, ooh, let me get a bar open. Let me get another location open. But also, if I were to leave, I could see myself being really, really happy just sitting around like bullshitting with other people that think they're funny and trying to put something together that's, creative and exciting for other people to look at. I'm not sure really what else that might be besides a TV show. I don't really consider myself like a comic. I'm not like a stand-up. I don't have material developed, but I am doing a live show later this summer for the first time. Yeah, in Brooklyn. And so again, I'm not trying to be a stand-up comic, but I thought it would be cool to bring a lot of the people from the weird Instagram world that has been created around these memes. And I'm kind of envisioning it. I'm workshopping it as like almost like a Graham Norton talk show where it's like I'll have 2 or 3 chefs and I'll just let them chat with each other and I'll kind of moderate. And then we'll just let people get into it and share their stories and have a good time in a public space and have maybe a couple drinks at a bar in a backyard. But I think that's a cool way of continuing what I've started with making the memes, which is, if there is in fact like a community that has been built here of people that feel the same way and want to laugh together about all the absurdities of our industry, then maybe 30 or 40 of us want to sit around in a backyard and hang out in a more structured way. So like that might be the next step to where this could potentially go.
I think that's brilliant. I think there's definitely an appetite for it. And when F&B Radio first got started, we did a live show and I wrote a bunch of sketch comedy because I have always been in entertainment, like theater and music. And so I wrote a bunch of sketch comedy and did almost like a weekend update, just like kind of taking the piss at everything that was happening in our little world, because it's a lot of that's, like I said, insider baseball, but everyone in Charleston gets it. And I was like, this is kind of a weird concept. And after we did a live podcast with a chef in town, it was amazing. But everybody in the restaurant industry was so amped for it because there isn't really an avenue like that. Yeah. I was like, nobody's going to understand it. Nobody's going to want to come. And it was like the opposite. It was a smash. I think people are going to fucking love to sit in a backyard in Brooklyn and see you do that because
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm necessarily that person, but like, I think there is an appetite for a version of the Daily Show that is food related. Like, I think that I'd be a great person to be, part of that writers team. And I know that there's a fantastic comedian out there that could front that type of show. So who knows, maybe it's in development somewhere and someone will give me a call, but like, I would watch that show every single night if it skewered our industry properly. And there isn't that much out there. I think that's why, like, that's why my Instagram has been successful. And, Youngmi Mayer, who is a stand-up comedian who's in the industry, like, she does a lot of food related content on her Instagram that I think is really funny. And obviously Ivy does the memes and stuff. Like, you seeing all these people come out. There's this guy named Jake Cornwell who does a lot of.
I love him. I love him.
He does a lot of like food related.
He does less
content.
Restaurant stuff now that he's like blowing up, and I'm like, go back to the time when you're talking about whispering Yeats poems.
Yes, yeah, exactly. He had some great early stuff about natural wine, and like, so there is an appetite out there for this type of comedy that is so rooted in what all of our lives are intertwined with. So we're like, I think I'm onto something, and a lot of people that are in this space are giving folks the type of content that they've been actually kind of starving for. So hopefully I can keep making it and people want to keep looking at it.
I think they will. I know you are just going to do amazing things with it. I'm so excited to have gotten some time with you and to catch up and to hear about all that you're doing. You guys are so fucking funny, and just, keep putting the memes out. I wondered sometimes, this was my last question for you, but do you ever feel like you're like, fuck, I'm all washed up. I've used that mechanism before. I've made this joke before. Like, it's hard to constantly, you're so prolific with the memes. I'm like, how do you continue to keep up that pace? Because it is like exhausting. Once you make them, then someone's like, oh, I've seen that one.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm embarrassed to say that I've made about 3,500 since COVID started. So like, for sure, some of it is, I could have maybe been better at self-editing, but like, I think I have a lot of content that is still pouring out of me. And, I did just take 7 days off and didn't post anything. And, I got a bunch of DMs that basically said, where are you at? Are you okay? Like, where are my memes? I start the day with you. And like I said earlier, like, the fastest way to my heart is telling me that, you love the memes and that you need them. So I was like, oh shit, if like these line cooks are, waking up, getting their cup of coffee, and on the way into work, they want to scroll through these memes. It's like, all right, I want to make them. You want to read them. Like, that's all I need. I only need a small audience to continue going. And we'll never run out of material because unfortunately, people in our industry keep doing, stupid, fucked up things that allow me to parody them. So there's always going to be new news that deserves to be skewered. And as we continue to like navigate this still in COVID world, I find myself still scared, frustrated, and angry, and ready to continue to pump them out. So for the foreseeable future, I think I'm going to be able to keep making them. And if I run out and it's ran its course, then it will be the time to switch to something else, and I'll be okay with that.
You're the best, dude. You're so fucking cool. You're never going to run out of stuff. That's like, it's an endless well. You just keep going back to the well.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming. Tell people where you can find, if you haven't already followed the account, it's.
Yeah. So it's at the Sussmans. That's TheSussmans. And my restaurant is Samisa Restaurant. It's located in 30 Rockefeller Center in the heart of Midtown Manhattan, on the concourse level, same level as the skating rink if you're looking for it. The roller skating and skating rink, we're right there pretty much next to it. And we're open Monday through Friday right now during the day, 11 to 4 p.m. for lunchtime. If you find yourself at the dentist or going to MoMA with your family visiting town, you got to bring them by Samisa and have a bite to eat. And hopefully in 2023, there will be a rebirth of the Brooklyn location. I am currently scouting locations, and I'm really, really hopeful to get a Brooklyn location reopened in next year.
That's amazing. Well, best of luck to you. Keep me posted. Next time I'm up there, I'm coming to see you.
Hell yeah. And I hope to get down to Charleston again soon. I've missed the last food and wine, but I'm eager to come back down. You have such a great city. And every time I'm there, just the hospitality of that industry, it really is one of the best food and food people cities in America. and everybody likes each other, and the food is great, and the service, dare I say, is some of the best I've ever had. People they take it seriously, but not in a way that is overbearing. And I love eating in Charleston. You can tell that everyone loves being part of the industry down there. It's very satisfying to be like a fly on the wall at Charleston Wine and Food and get to see everyone in that city doing their thing.
That's so sweet. I feel the same exact way. We'll be ready to welcome you back when you get down here. But
thank you.
Follow the Sussmans. You can laugh your ass off, hopefully every day. Keep it going. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you so much, Eli.
Of course. Happy to chat with you. Thanks for having me on.
And you guys know what you can do. You can leave a review for the show because it helps people find the show. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow the Sussmans on Instagram. You can keep sharing those beautiful memes. And I'll see you next week. Bye, bye, bye.